Hey everybody, Jeff Sutherlin, associate broker with eXp Realty, along with my business partner, Chase Waldron. And we are excited to share with you today some of the key changes that have been made in our industry. A lot of things changed just a couple days ago on August 17th. I want to demystify it for you guys. We want to make this so easy for you as a buyer and a seller so you can understand what's changed, how we do business now that's going to be a little bit different from before. So let me share a nice graphic for you guys. And the old process on the left-hand side, and this is the way it's been for decades and decades, a seller would pay a listing broker a compensation, a fee, and that listing broker would share that commission with a buyer's agent. We used to call that a co-broke. Co-brokering is not happening anymore in the multiple listing service. So there is no longer a commission that's being offered to a buyer's agent on the multiple listing service. So now we actually have to call the listing agent and go, hello, Mr. Listing Agent, is your seller offering compensation? So it's not shown at all in the multiple listing service. That started 2 days ago. And if you can see here, you'll see the seller is paying the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. At the bottom, you can see that the buyer is actually paying the money at the very end, and it shows up on the settlement statement at the closing table at the title or escrow company, and you can see that's where the seller gets the proceeds. So now everything's changed, okay? Now we have a very different situation, and this is really designed to protect the consumer public. So this new process is a little bit different. We have two agreements that are being signed, one between the seller and the listing agent. In this case, we call it a seller's agent, and that's always been done. That's called a listing agreement. That's an employment agreement. So we have that going on the selling side. And then on the buying side, we have another employment agreement that's being signed. It's called the buyer broker agreement. Now, this has always existed before, but now we have to use this before we show homes. If somebody says, hey, Chase, I'd really like you to be my realtor. At that point, we know we have to have a conversation about an employment agreement. We have to be able to share that. And why would we do that? What are the advantages of having a buyer sign a buyer broker agreement?
So the buyer broker agreement basically outlines the fee for service of that buyer's agent, and it really just defines the working relationship, right? So it's all upfront. The consumer is able to see, okay, hey, this is how compensation works. This is that particular agent's fee for service, and it's all out there in the all out in the open prior to even seeing the first home. And so that's really the benefit, is that the consumer gains that knowledge before they go out and see anything, basically.
Yeah, that is really great. It's all up front. So before the seller paid the listing broker, he shared his commission, or she shared their commission with the buyer broker. Now let's walk through the different ways that the different parties get compensated. You'll see in the lower right-hand corner. What are the options, Chase?
Yep. So we got three different ways where the buyer's agent can get compensated. The first would be the seller compensates the buyer's agent directly. So instead of them compensating through the listing agreement and then that being passed over to the buyer's side, they compensate the buyer's agent directly. So that would be the first form of compensation. The second form of compensation can be the buyer has the opportunity to pay their buyer's agent directly out of their own pocket. So if they come across a scenario where they really like a home and that particular seller is not willing to compensate the buyer's side, that buyer then has the opportunity to pay out of their own pocket. Now, something to keep in mind with that may limit the amount of traffic going to that particular seller's home, because oftentimes, especially with first-time home buyers, oftentimes they only have the amount for the down payment. They don't have the additional funds needed in order to compensate their agent. So they at that point, they are not able to view homes where the seller isn't willing to compensate. So that's something to keep in mind.
Right. And on the option number one, if the seller is able to compensate the buyer's agent, that might attract more buyers in
100%.
itself as well. So those are the first two options. How about option number three?
Yeah, the third option is the buyer can request concessions from the seller. The seller can grant a credit to the buyer in order to fulfill their obligation of the buyer broker agreement. So that is the third and final way that the buyer side can get compensated.
Yeah. So the same things apply. Buyers are still buying homes, sellers are still selling homes, and we want to make it as easy as possible. The good news is you don't have to know all this, okay? We do, and we have to properly explain it to you so it makes sense, and then perform our fiduciary service to you. One thing we want you to know, Chase and I want you to know, is that we never want to have anybody feel locked in to do business with us. So when we do our buyer broker agreements, we often sign non-exclusive buyer broker agreements. eXp Realty has led the way. The Consumer Federation of America has said, wow, eXp is leading the way. In fact, right now, our leadership has encouraged other companies in the industry to take our lead and even use our forms if it makes it easier for them. They're very consumer friendly. So there's easy exits for us. You're not bound to do listings with us. If you're not happy, we don't want to force you to do business with us. And our buyer broker agreements are non-exclusive. We want you to be happy because ultimately we want referrals from you. So we really care about your how much you enjoy the experience with us. Chase, any last words to everybody about this?
Yeah, I would just say reach out. Please feel free to reach out to us. The market is changing. We'd love to discuss that with you, and we'd love to show you our VIP buyer program and the offerings that we extend out to the buyers that work with us and kind of what we do above and beyond. So please feel free to reach out to us directly. My number is 707-685-7214.
And I'm Jeff, and my number is 602-370-7174. And we hope you all have a great day. Come to us if you have any questions. We'd be glad to help you. Have a great day.